Here we are, and I have felt so blessed and lucky to spend this year with all of you. What an amazing experiment this was, and to me, what a blessing it was to spend all of this time with you over the last year. But tonight is not about hearing from me, it's about hearing from all of you and having you all share with those who are in the room and those who couldn't be here. And you will see very specifically we are videotaping this and recording this so that we can share it with folks, including those who are financially supporting the program moving forward. So let me just very quickly call out Becky George as my co-facilitator and our senior advisor of race equity at Mission Partners, who has been an amazing partner and guide to our students. And so Becky and I will be taking turns facilitating 3 panels tonight so you can hear from the students about their experience. So with that, if I can have Shane, Ryan, and Andrea join me at the front. All right, so we're doing rapid fire interview style here. So we've got about 10 minutes per panel, if that. So we'll keep our interview answers short here. But we're going to start first. If you can each introduce yourselves. So start with just your name, your class year, your major, and as we always start, your pronouns as well.
So I am Andrea Ramirez. I'm a junior. I am a finance and marketing major, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I always get confused.
My name is Shane McHugh. I'm a sophomore. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Hi everybody, my name is Ryan Brooks. I'm a sophomore, political science major. My pronouns are he, him, and his.
Great, thank you. And I realized I started without introducing myself. I'm Carrie Fox, I'm the CEO of Mission Partners, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. So I'd like to ask you 3 why you wanted to join this fellowship.
So I'm a political science major, and once I graduate, I have the goal of going to law school and eventually running for public office. I think it's important for those who are in public office to really represent those who put them there, and because we're a diverse country, it's important to keep all points of view in mind. I wanted something where I can really come and sit down and talk with my peers and listen to their thoughts, maybe first of all get to know them, understand their backgrounds. And right from the first meeting, I knew that the Social Impact Fellowship was the place to just do that. So I was really drawn to do this to not only solve a problem, but get to meet people who I was going to school with and work together to solve a problem.
So I'm also a political science minor, and I'm looking to get in public policy as well. I think the reason I joined is since I want to get involved in public policy, I want to talk about diversity and the issues that matter to all people. And I think the reason why it was important, especially for me, was I came from a very homogeneous hometown and county where it was majority white, and I didn't really see the experiences of, let's call it, the other America. I had a really narrow childhood, and I felt this fellowship helped open me up to different perspectives, including race, gender, cultural, and just overall different backgrounds.
And I think for me, it was something that I was definitely very interested in, but I didn't know how to get involved on campus. So when I saw the opportunity, I thought, it'd be great for my own development and just to really explore another interest that I had, but I didn't really get very into. So, it's been a great experience because of that. And also, I'm a business major, so you wouldn't really think that, or maybe before you wouldn't really think that it is important to think about justice, but today, you see marketing that is very oriented towards their customer values and what they really believe in and what they stand for, and just implementing that in the future for me would be really important to not only sell something but really kind of align it with the people's values so that it really does have something to offer. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with the background of the Social Impact Fellowship, it really brought together design thinking. So our whole experience over the course of this year was grounded in the design thinking experience, starting with empathy and noticing and moving all the way through prototyping and testing. But we did it through an equity lens. So the students were asked to look at their communities where they live, learn, work, and serve. They needed to identify inequities, and then they used design thinking to then address those inequities. So I'd love to ask you a little more about what drew you to that model, this idea of design thinking and equity and bringing those together.
Just to kind of go off of my first answer a little bit, I think this will answer the question. When you think of today's world, of course, like I said, we're divided before but there's tough issues out there, and there always has been. But I think a lot of the reason people are turned off today is because of the tone which exists, a lot of finger pointing, and that kind of tendency to stay within your own bubbles and only associate with people who agree with you or think like you. And what really drew me to this type of thinking was the fact that I'd be in a group where I wasn't sure if everybody would agree with me. Matter of fact, there might be times where people would disagree with me, or I would be a minority viewpoint. But I think what's more important than your viewpoint is not necessarily, you're going to always have disagreements, but just the fact, can you understand where that other person is coming from who I disagree with, and respect their right to disagree? And I think just having that understanding back and forth with, one person or a group, which is a lot of opinions, really that type of thinking and being in that environment is what drew me to this type of thinking in this fellowship as a whole.
To be very blunt, I've never done a project like this. I've never been a part of a fellowship before. So I think this was really important to kind of pick an issue, work as a group, and try to figure out a problem with the school and how to fix it.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you said. The biggest thing was empathizing with other people. So, we might not even be diverse, like superficially, but when you go really into what the thoughts are and the backgrounds, I think we just found out that we all had lived through different experiences, even within Loyola. Loyola is like a small bubble, but the way that you experience it can be very different to the way that someone else experiences it. So I think that was another thing to add on to that.
How did this experience, this fellowship over the last year, supplement your Loyola experience, the education and the academic courses that you had been taking?
It really taught me to think about the fact that I'm one person at Loyola. There's roughly 4,000 students at Loyola undergrad, and those 4,000 students each have their own unique experience. So we're in a group of 10 people, but just sitting with 9 other people really opened my eyes to the fact that each person has their own unique experience, which comes from their background or their previous schooling. And just being able to sit down with other people, open your mind up to, think the fact that there are more experiences out there at Loyola and learn more about that.
I've had a lot of great professors here, but I think what's important about this was it reminded us the city that we're in Baltimore, and that this fellowship promoted diversity. And that's not saying other classes don't promote diversity, but I don't think you can get enough of that at a school like this. A lot of Loyola students don't leave Baltimore when they graduate, so that's why I think it's critically important to continuously have this fully rounded, diverse education.
And I think one of the things I really took on from the fellowship, and I was talking to Carrie about it, is in one of my marketing classes, we were talking about, how do we market a product? And a lot of the things that were being skipped was, talking about sustainability and how important it is now more than ever. So, that was one of the things that I was really, I kind of, you might be taught something in class, but there's so much more that you can take from it when you start questioning your own surrounding, your own community. So for me, just having different points of views, hearing about my fellows' experiences was very powerful for me to go into another class and start questioning things that would come up naturally from just academic work.
Mm-hmm. This program sits inside the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and so we'll be hearing from Wendy after our 3 panels about how this sits inside the portfolio of that work. But given that this is the inaugural cohort, and we will soon ramp up to prepare for our next, I'm curious if you can all share as your closing question of this first chapter, what will stick with you from this experience?
What will stick with me is really the people that we met and the drive to really address a problem on campus. I think issues which impact students as a whole on campus, there should be input from students. And just the fact that all of us got together and we really added on to a conversation which had been occurring about the diversity core. And just the fact that we were able to make our mark and an impact and hopefully driving to a solution, I think will stick with me for the rest of my Loyola career and certainly probably even beyond that.
My answer will overlap with the preceding one too. We work in groups in the classroom, but I think this is a little bit different because we're working in a very large group for about a year now. So I think what's going to stick with me is the fact that I was able to work in a team together with people with different opinions and backgrounds and still achieve a similar goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing for me was just learning how to sit back and listen. You know, oftentimes you think that that's a given, that you'll do it immediately, and just because it's something that you have to do, but you actually have to proactively just listen and, you know, forget about your own perspective for a little just second and really take in what other people have to offer and what other people have to say. Because that's really how we got to a solution. A lot of times, you know, it might have been conflicting with some other person's perspective, but a lot of times when you want to come to the best solution, a lot of times you're just going to have to listen, and other people are going to have to listen back, and that's really how you get to the best solution. So I think the process of design thinking really gets you to do that, because you have to empathize. So I think listening is a big part, but empathizing is just another level that you have to add on to when you work in groups.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the three of you, thank you for starting off our program tonight. Thank you for being part of this program. I have loved working with all of you and getting to know you, and I hope this is just the beginning of our relationship. So thank you to our first panel.
Hi everybody, I'm Becky George. I am the Senior Advisor of Racial Equity at Mission Partners. I've been with Mission Partners for about a year now, and as I think Carrie used the word blessed, I feel very blessed, and I don't actually use that word very often, but I feel very blessed to have worked with the Social Impact Fellows, and lucky that we were all placed together in January and are now coming to a close here in December. As we entered into this program in January, we talked about what diversity, equity, and inclusion meant. We had these folks go through surveys, we had them do questionnaires, we had them really thinking about what that meant for them and what they thought about justice in this world. And we talked about Baltimore, and we talked about this country and what this country is going through. And I think we got to this point where we said, wow, we really want to connect with the community, but first to connect with the community, we have to connect with ourselves and our own communities first. We really have to understand diversity, equity, inclusion internally first, and then we have to do it within our own communities first before we can go anywhere else, right? And so this group of people, I've been doing work on equity for about a decade now, but really truly my whole life as a person of color, right? In the United States. But this group of young folks really helped me connect in a different way with what equity means. And it is inspirational. And I hope when you read through that, I hope that you find that inspiration as well. I feel very lucky to have worked with you all and you all as well. But can you introduce yourselves? My name is Becky George, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Can you do the same, your major and your pronouns?
Got it. My name's Colin Ward. I'm a junior. I'm a psychology major with a minor in marketing, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
I'm Sydney Edwards. I'm a sophomore majoring in marketing with a minor in communications, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
I'm Katie Quigley. I'm a sophomore. I'm studying writing and sociology, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
I'm Kelsey Wyatt. I'm a senior at Loyola. I use she, her, and hers. And I'm a double major in political science and psychology with a minor in gender and sexuality studies.
Great. Thank you. So can we, as we go into thinking about what we've done over the past year, can you give our guest kind of an overview of what this project was and what we did? Maybe one or two, y'all?
Let's start.
No big deal.
Okay, I can start. I think an overview of the project and the work that we've done over this past year would be that we came together as strangers, but together we formed a team that wanted to pursue our personal interests while keeping a central focus, which happened to be an issue of diversity on our campus. And we focused on that, and we made that our goal.
Yeah. And I know we kind of talked about design thinking in the last panel, but it's a 5-stage process, but I kind of like to think about it just in 2, whereas we first had the empathy and kind of brainstorming stage of things, and then really worked into the prototyping and testing. So very early on, probably for the first half of the fellowship, we were really working with one another to learn more about each other's experiences, do our own research outside of just us, really look into Baltimore too, and how Loyola is situated in Baltimore. And then once we kind of had our objective, which is included in that packet. But once we really started to look at the diversity core, that was when we really moved into more of the testing process of it all.
Nice. So why did y'all focus in on Loyola? Why did you go into the diversity core? How did we get there, and why did y'all decide that?
I think Shane summed it up best in the last panel when he said that we realized, he says a lot of people who graduate from Loyola stay in the Baltimore community, and the only way to really impact the community around us is to look inward towards ourselves and see what we need to do better. So we realized there were some faults in how we were teaching our students about diversity that we thought that was there, and we wanted to recognize that and try to fix that, so we know when we're graduating our students and they're staying in the community or whatever community they go to, they're bringing along the lessons that they learned from here to the places they go.
Yeah, and not just like what happens after you leave Loyola, but what happens while you're at Loyola is also incredibly important. So we talk about harm reduction models, and I think that diversity and educating about diversity in these college classrooms is critical, because you have to talk about what's happening while you're here. It's not just what happens after, but the way you interact or you fail to interact with your surrounding community says something. It speaks volumes. And if Loyola isn't speaking to its students and it isn't having a fully formed Jesuit education, then how much really is it doing? What is our education really worth? So talking about the diversity core really gets to the core of what Jesuit ideology is really all about.
Thank you. So can y'all take a step back and remember that time where we were kind of trying to focus in on what we were going to do? How was that process like for y'all, and can y'all explain to these lovely folks how that went?
I mean, it was challenging. That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
We started very big picture, and we worked. It took a while, like Katie said, like the first half of the fellowship to narrow it down to where we really wanted to get to it. And it was a challenging process because, like we said, we're mixing in a bunch of different views and opinions, and we're all trying to find the one common goal that we can all agree on. But I think when we found it, we were all just like full speed ahead. So that was a cool part about that.
I remember in the very beginning, like you said, we started really broad, and I think we had any issue under the sun up on like a huge just piece of paper, whether we were talking about racial injustice or gender disadvantage. It was just all over the room, and then we were all just using Post-its to kind of put up things that, like, more pinpointed concerns within those larger bubbles. And it was overwhelming because we had like 50 up there, and it was like, okay, how do you go from here? But through a lot of things like that, and through making different charts of, like, we had like a Loyola bubble chart that kind of went through all of the flaws that we saw that we felt like we could maybe attack a little bit more. And yeah, I think too, also like the definition stage really helped. Our definition statement's super long, and there's so many adjectives and just ways that we describe things in there, but it helped us propel us forward to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. So what was that process? Now we got it down, y'all focused in on the diversity core. How was it once you put together your case? How was it presenting your findings to some of the folks in this room and administration?
I went with Katie and Trevor, and we got to present to the subcommittee of the UCC, the diversity subcommittee, and it was very amazing experience to be able to talk to people who not only want to listen to our opinions, but they're the ones who actually made the diversity core, and they're the ones who are making sure that the diversity core is upholding the Jesuit ideologies. And I just felt like being able to present it to people not only in the UCC subcommittee, but people around campus who just wanted to listen was very impactful for us, because it showed us that our work was meaningful, not only to us, but to everyone.
Yeah, and I think what's also really interesting about our group as a whole is that we don't necessarily just represent like one office. So we have like evergreens, we have RAs, we have people from CCSJ, we have like people from different sections of Loyola's of the community. So I think what's really, powerful to see is that the issues we identify and where we landed on, this isn't necessarily just like one perspective, but this is coming out of everyone's perspective. So I think bringing that to administration, I was in the meeting with Dr. Kelly I felt that we almost had a lot more power in that spot. Because we have such diverse experiences, we reach different people at different times. I think it shows that there are students who really want to work towards making equity the central focus of this campus, and I think that there really are people who are going to do everything it takes to make this happen, and to make Loyola a better place for not just us now, but for students who are going to follow us tens and several years from now. But I think that even just showing administrators that Loyola students care, and that caring doesn't come out of like one necessarily office. It's not just the Evergreens who care, but it's all Loyola students who really, really care deeply.
Great. And last question for y'all, how do you feel the conversations in this whole process, how do you feel like what has it brought to you, I guess?
I think the conversations that it's brought, especially like between the peers, has been just very like educational. It's taught us about how to, like Andrea said, listen and like listen actively and make sure you're hearing everyone's point of view and incorporating that. I also think that the conversations with administration were very insightful. You don't really always get an opportunity to do that and sit down and have a voice. Like Kelsey said, it was a collection of students from different backgrounds, and you almost did feel powerful in that room, so it was nice to see.
Yeah, I would say I thought I knew a lot about diversity before I came into this program, and I realized I didn't know that what ableism was. I didn't know about a lot of things before I came into this program, so for me personally, I feel like the conversations really enriched me as a person and allowed me to go out into the Loyola community and even the world and be able to talk about the things that we spoke about for the past year.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, but I was really grateful for this experience and the conversations we've had. As the news editor for Loyola's newspaper as well, I feel like I always was trying to keep my ears open for things that could turn into a story that we felt like Loyola students could benefit from, and the conversations that happened in this room and kind of the experiences that were brought up or the things that were going on campus that were maybe undercover and not really spoken about, I was then able to then apply in the journalism world to kind of get stories like these out to more people than just the 10 of us. So it was a way that I felt like those two parts of my life really overlapped, and I was grateful for that.
I think this has been very fulfilling for me. Personally, I don't think I've had an experience like this at Loyola, where I think I've really worked with other students to see something change or to work on something. I'm extraordinarily grateful for the privilege that this has been, to even be in this space, to be having these conversations with folks who are similar-minded to myself, instead of feeling like a lone, small little fish in the big Atlantic. I think this has been definitely, I think, one of the most important Loyola experiences I've had so far.
Agreed.
Well, thank you all so much. Can we give them a round of applause? I appreciate y'all talking about the project. We're going to move into our next panel, which we're going to talk about the lessons learned. So y'all can go ahead and go back to your seats. We'll have the last lovely three head up. So would love for y'all to introduce yourselves, your majors, and your pronouns, please.
Awesome. So hi, I am Trevor Torman. I am a sophomore here, political science major, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
My name is Andrea Robinson. I am a junior. I study biology and writing, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
My name's Christina Kingsley. I just graduated in May. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I majored in biology and sociology.
And just got into dental school?
Yes, I
Right?
did. Thank you.
So one thing we were remarking about earlier was that when we started this, we didn't know where it was going to take us. None of us knew where it was going to take us, including Josh and Wendy, right? It was one big, let's figure out what happens in a social impact fellowship. And we had the basis of the curriculum for sure, but we didn't know at all where you all as students would gel and convene and want to focus your energies. And what we love about it is thinking about where you've come and what you learned along the way, and you know, you've got the reports there, and there are very clear actions and recommendations in those. I'd love you all to start thinking about what you see now, what you hear now, what you know now that you didn't know a year ago, or you didn't see a year ago, or you didn't think about a year ago.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. What I was saying before, and I've said it for a fair amount of time now, I feel as if I'm a totally different person leaving this program than I have been coming into it. A very, very positive change, let me say that. One of the skills that I earned from this program is it's definitely enhanced my critical thinking and really challenged me to make sure all the voices in the room are being brought to the table. And Andrea, you had said it before, the power of listening, and it's really challenged me to make sure that is the first thing that I'm doing whenever I enter a space.
For me, I feel like it has definitely lit a fire underneath me. As someone who is part of Alana, I was able to not only spread my experiences, but definitely, I would say, educate those who don't know what the actual issues are regarding diversity. And as an outcome, we recently had a town hall, which was led by Alana, just to speak to faculty members to discuss some of our grievances about regarding the diversity aspect and what we believe should change. So I definitely feel like this program has opened up my eyes to things that I didn't know was going on campus, and different perspectives that my fellows were able to grant me as well. So.
It's kind of amazing how much you don't think about current policies, you know, in the situation you're in. It's kind of like you're a fish and you're swimming in your own water kind of thing. You don't really know what's kind of beyond. And once you really start digging into what the issues are, which we were really fortunate to be able to do, to hear everyone's perspective, kind of the flaws from, you know, not only the students of color that are in this, but also, you know, the students of different gender identities and what have you. It was really amazing to see sort of everyone's different perspectives and everyone's kind of perspective on things that you wouldn't even think are issues, and then bring those to light, and you're like, wow, you know, we can really do a lot. You know, we have a lot of work to do at Loyola, and I think that, you know, knowing that we actually could change some things that we were in, the situation that we in was really amazing.
I love that. So if we think back, what worked well that you hope for the next cohort? What do you think could be improved on for the next cohort?
One of my favorite parts of each meeting was the very beginning of the meetings, where we would call them community meals or mutuality meals. And what that is it's a very casual setting to talk about like real big issues. And I don't know what about it, it made it seem more personal, really like had us practice and engage with like empathy. And I feel like because of that, there's such a strong bond amongst all the fellows. So I feel like you all are already planning on doing that, but I would strongly encourage keeping that up.
The food is about this.
Yeah.
Yes. One thing that was mentioned earlier, I think by Sydney, when you said that we had to like write down like our perspectives about a few questions that were asked, and kind of like throw them in the circle, and then randomly anyone can pick up any like ball of paper. You can read out loud like the different perspectives of our peers, and it was definitely eye-opening to see different perspectives that was in the room, that you may or may not have felt the same way, but by reading it out loud, you definitely saw where different people would come from, and then also the mutuality. It was like the food was great, but the conversations were amazing, and honestly it was pretty fun, so I enjoyed it.
I think one thing I'd really hope for the next cohort, if that happens, is just sort of trust that we had in our little community. I mean, I think in one of the first days we established what we wanted out of this fellowship. We wrote down a bunch of words on what we wanted our space to feel like, inclusive, and a bunch of other sort of words we wanted to be. And the level of trust we had just speaking to each other about really hard perspectives and really hard things to lean into. And I really hope that that gets transmitted to the next group.
Can I follow up with that? Did we have any tough moments, and how do you feel like that was handled, or what do you hope will be improved upon for next year?
Does somebody want to take that on?
Of course, being someone of color, the racial aspect is always something that is a little bit, tricky at times. And it is something that is definitely deep within me. So I feel like the social impact fellowship has definitely had a respect towards that. I felt like it was, as you mentioned, trust. I felt like I definitely found that within this fellowship. I was able to speak about what my true feelings were surrounding racial issues on campus, feeling as if it wouldn't leave the room, or as if other people will understand where I'm coming from, or just truly kind of have empathy towards what I was feeling. So it was definitely a safe space regarding that particular issue.
Yeah, and there's such importance in having that safe space. So, like, we all came into this group as, 10 individuals, but by the end of it, and even during it, we realized we can't get anything done if we're doing it all, individually. And so, by making that team, for that team to act successfully, you first have to have trust. And we've, worked really hard for making that trust and building that level of comfort that you can, we expected discomfort, but we never let that discomfort stop us from having those conversations and keep going, which I thought was very important.
I think we've touched a lot about the different perspectives that we brought into the room. And I think one of the most challenging days, probably for all of us, there was this activity where we all had a slip of paper where we all answered kind of questions about, our morals and values, what we believed in on, kind of hot topic, hot button issues, including gay rights, trying to remember the other stuff, abortion, racial issues, with levels varying from strongly disagree, agree, and strongly agree. And we had 4 corners of the room, and you had someone's paper that wasn't yours, and you had to kind of answer as them and justify why someone might have answered that, even if it was something you disagreed with. And I think that was kind of hard, because if you really disagreed with what they were saying, trying to come up with sort of, rationale for someone else's thing. I mean, it was really hard in the moment to kind of, justify something you really didn't believe, but it really allowed us to kind of broaden our horizons, understand at least maybe why someone said that. Maybe they're from a small town, where this didn't happen, or maybe this happened to them and that's why they believe this. And that was a hard moment, but it really did bring us, our perspectives together closer, and created that trust that we've been talking about.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that was really the hope of all of this, right? That the spirit, the underlying effort of design thinking is, who are we designing for? And as you all go out into the world and start your careers, to be able to put yourself literally into what someone else is thinking and feeling, how much of a better designer you will be, right? Whether you are officially a designer or not, you will all be designing things. You already are designing things and experiences. So thank you for raising that one. I have one more question for this group before we go into a couple questions. I'm going to ask you to go back in time to who you were just before the fellowship was beginning, right? So think about where you were in your life, what you were getting ready for, what you thought you were about to get into, what you would say to the you of about a year ago about what you were about to embark on.
Be able to listen and be able to admit that you don't know everything, because I feel like coming in, I felt like I knew everything like a mile wide and an inch deep. But leaving this, I was able to learn how to think deeper or go deep more into like fewer issues, but fewer very large, very important issues. So what I would tell myself a year ago would be open to listening.
I would say, I would definitely tell myself it's okay to connect with others, build that trust with others. I definitely felt that by kind of building that trust in the beginning of the fellowship, I was able to definitely open up more, and basically say what was on my mind at the time or how I felt about subjects without feeling as if I had to mute myself or kind of censor myself in that way. So I would definitely feel like just speak your mind, and this is a safe space.
I'm trying to think, where was I was starting my senior year of college, and so I'd already been 3 years at Loyola, where I feel like, you know, we couldn't really change anything that was going on. You know, you didn't really feel like you had any power as a student. Hey, I'm like kind of almost done, just kind of like go through it. But I mean, little did we know how much actual impact we all could have on, you know, the school climate, the campus climate, you know, maybe potential curriculum changes. I mean, all of this really amazing stuff. And I think if I had to go back and tell myself something, it would probably be to lean into the discomfort. You know, it's really hard for, you know, students in the Loyola bubble. I know we've all mentioned that, just kind of like, we like to kind of maintain this sort of the status quo in a way. But leaning into that discomfort, having those hard conversations, I mean, I think all students should be able to experience that at Loyola, and I'm so happy we had the opportunity to do that here.
Well, to the three of you, thank you as well for closing our formal program and for being such an important part of this experience with us.
Thank you.
I'll give you all a round of applause.